Sinners is a prime example of modern Black America who will support anything that even resembles deepness with their skin color on top of it. Like, it just has to resemble some form of deepness. It doesn't actually have to be deep. Ryan Coogler is a prime example of how to capitalize off of cinematic Black trauma, but mask it under some form of deepness. Except for this right here is ironically, one of the most anti-Black movies I've seen. This movie is not good. This movie is not good in any front. Cinematically, just objectively, movie-wise, it follows zero narratives, shallow characters with zero development in the characters, right? Everything in the movie, just from the themes, the tone, everything serves as cannon fodder for one specific message. And it's not the message people think, right? People think it's about Black unity or Black power. It's actually the opposite. I think it's very manipulative for Ryan Coogler to make the decision to have it in like a Jim Crow era. The racial tension is only a vehicle for the real message at play. So let's start off. One of the flaws of the movie is the narrative shifts and the emotional hooks of the movie. Right, so the movie begins establishing like just it's full on emotional, full on Black trauma. Like it hits you in the face, Black trauma, like bam, right? And that's okay, right? That's not the problem. So two brothers, Smoke and Stack, return back to down south Mississippi. I think they came from Chicago, and they are trying to start a jukebox. So they come from down there. They got some money, and apparently they got the money doing bad things. I'm not going to go into that really, but it's literally nothing to go into. They were doing bad things, illegal things. That's literally it, right? They don't even go into the backstory of that, right? They come back down to make some money, run into their cousin Sammy, and Sammy's a gifted teenager. It turns out he has the gift of music. So it's a supernatural ability to connect people from the living and the dead and to see the both past and the present. That's as far as that goes. It serves no other purpose, and they don't even acknowledge this really at all. Like, that's it. There's no reason, rhyme, or reason why this exists. There's no purpose for this to exist. It just exists, right? So the setup promises some form of heritage, maybe some historical or social economic commentary on race, maybe even Black pride, right? Could be Black pride and how we're just overcoming Black trauma, right? It promises these things starting out. Very family oriented to some degree. You see people getting back together, people revisiting each other, right? And then the plot progresses, right? But then the story pivots from like any form of that to like this vampire horror thriller. And you're just like, okay, you know, the movie has to progress, right? So there's a shift. It shifts to a vampire theme, right? And so towards the bottom half of the movie, when they're all jamming and the juke joint is apparently being somewhat successful when it comes to people coming in, but they're not making enough money. Anyways, that gets thrown to the sidelines and it doesn't really matter towards the end, but fine, right? We need something to move the plot along. So the boys aren't making too much money. And so some random white people that aren't really random, the story kind of shows them being bit by vampires, and they're attracted to Sammy's music. So they randomly show up to the club, and eventually the twins, or like, screw it. Maybe the white dude's got some money and we need to, you know, get some profit because we're kind of losing money. Because once again, people don't have enough right now because of the social economic time period that they're in. And there's a lot of Black people struggling, but they want to make a club for Black people. Okay, I can get with that. It makes sense. Perfect, right? It makes sense and perfect in the movie for what it's giving us, right? Okay, it flows. So then they invite the vampires, but it turns out they know they're vampires, but we kind of know they're vampires, and they were attracted to Sammy's music as he was playing throughout the night. Okay, but here's where we get the issue. The shift in emotional and thematic foundations that were laid earlier with the historical commentary, maybe even Black pride overcoming, you know, Black trauma, even heritage and family and stuff, all that stuff gets thrown out the way for the vampire thing. But then the vampire thing, anytime that starts to like pick up in the plot and the tone changes, right, the vampire thing is thrown away. So now it's not even a horror movie anymore. It's a musical slash it comes off like social commentary. It's not social commentary, right? Because it doesn't actually commentate anything except for white people are bad inherently. White people are bad. White people are culturally appropriating, even though they kind of don't even get into that, right? It's very lazy and loose. Like,
Left you for dead. I can save you from your fate. You don't need no saving.
Yes, you do.
The vampires stop being scary and they just start, playing music and trying to slowly lure black people out of the club in various different ways. The race is the surface level. The real message is Christianity, or God inherently, is a white man-made religion. That's the only consistent theme throughout the entire movie and throughout the entire tone. Everything else, even the racial tension and the black trauma, is served as cannon fodder. It is served as just something to easily throw away. Like I said before, it's a vehicle for this narrative. It's an emotional hook for this narrative. It's to get people, especially black people, wrapped up in the black trauma and forget the actual thing they're giving you, the logic that they're giving you, the message that they're giving you. So back to the plot. So various situations within the movie where people get lured out or people get bitten, right? And then the vampire just starts like pretending to have church service and that people need to get saved and that, you can have eternal life if you join us. We just want love. And so it's like this weird jab at Christianity, and it's disguised as social commentary, and people are eating it up. And it's just like, do you guys get that he's using black trauma? He's weaponizing black trauma to jab Christians. And it doesn't make sense, because if just the basic foundation of Christianity, literally the earliest findings of Christianity was like in Africa. So it doesn't even, it was like Ethiopia or somewhere, which is like pretty black. So it's like, okay, I guess you might be misinformed. I'll deal with you being misinformed on Christianity. But when your whole movie derives from jabbing it, and you jab it with the most basic error, that's a little aggravating to watch. It was like, oh, okay, fine, let's go with it. So now you're not even scared anymore because they're like doing an Irish dance in the middle of a seemingly mocked up church service, only to get people bitten. But then it's like you're giving me scatterbrained false commentary. Okay. It throws away every aspect of promises that it gives. Any setup is thrown away. Like, these are basic movie errors in writing a plot. Basic plot errors. You promise us something, you set it up for something, and you don't fulfill any of the promises or any of the setup. But you want me to be happy that you gave me some half-baked, wrong, by the way, commentary on Christianity? Let's go with it. So the film's latter half focuses on horror and action, with dramatic confrontations involving vampires mixed with the racial tension of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, these elements by themselves could have just been individually divvied up, and they could have served within their own right. They didn't have to be mixed up, right? But the way they shift the narrative away from introspective exploration of cultural or spiritual themes introduced earlier, that is such a disgusting way they did it, because it just shows you how it served no purpose. This movie is like a Democrat, racist white person trying to please a black audience. That's what this movie feels like. It's peak narrative dissonance. By setting up profound themes, right, then diverting attention to just random, not even good genre tropes. It's genre tropes done so badly, so poorly, without even exploring any of the narratives promised before or even now, right? It didn't explore anything new within any genre that it slipped into. It just started running into different genres randomly. Like, it was a schizophrenic writer. Like, there's so many things, so many questions. So they dance around negative connotations and negative gatekeeping, and it's such a bad way of writing, because it says some people can have the gift of music, but then they kind of avoid saying white people the entire movie, but they also show that white people can't have the gift of music. Ergo, because for one, they actually narrate that they start naming races, and then you forget about white people, and that's okay, right? But then when you back it up with white people being like semi half the reason for the movie and in the movie, that's called negative gatekeeping. Like, you're not saying it, but you're saying it. I could get past that if they did it the right way and it actually provided some form of like reason to do it. Like, if you give me a reason for you doing that, that would make sense, but it doesn't. So it's already understood that white people can't have the gift of music, even though they don't flat out say it. They give negative connotations and a narrative built on that just not being possible. Let's just agree, like, let's just let the church say amen for the force of the plot. Like, sure, right? But then also, like, a witch is kind of like a semi-protagonist or like side protagonist of the movie. And so it's just like, well, why are we trusting her exactly? Why? Well, because she's black. Like, literally, like, if we're gonna go that route, how do I know that she's not evil? Outside of the movie forcing me to perceive her as a good person, right? You don't show it, and you barely really tell it at all if she's a good person. It's just, she's black. We've been doing this with my ancestors for years. So we have a witch conjuring spirits, but apparently these spirits are the ancestors. You might ask, how do you know that? They never explain it. They never explain that, where she's getting these spirits or this type of information from. Just trust her, she's black. I said, okay, fine. The premise of the movie racializes spirituality while giving a false dichotomy of spirituality and religion, where either your belief system is either based on ancestor worship, or essentially, if you're a Christian, then you worship white people and you're a coon. That's how they juxtapose this stuff, just from a showcase. So anyways, yeah. So like there's a false dichotomy of either you worship the ancestors and you're free, or you worship God and you're a Christian and you're a white coon and you're enslaved by the white man because the white man gave you that religion. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And so throughout the whole movie, that's the consistent jab. Throughout the entire movie, even from mocking Christianity, from the vampires holding church services for people who want to get bitten. the literal father of the main character. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And so throughout the whole movie, that's the consistent jab. Throughout the entire movie, even from mocking Christianity, from the vampires holding church services for people who want to get bitten. the literal father of the main character being said and framed as a coon because he's a Christian and a preacher, but also he literally told his son not to do something because he was going to get in danger and hurt. And like his father was right. So it doesn't make sense how you're framing his father as like a bad guy, but technically his father was completely right the whole movie. I said, okay, fine. I don't know if you want to, it pretends to highlight or commentate over white supremacy in American history, but it doesn't, like, at all. Because there's a consistent connotation that white people can't have the power of music or the gift of music and are inherently evil, it seems like the narrative logic is sacrificed for the sake of racial gatekeeping, which ruins the premise of altogether the whole movie, ruins the premise of the movie altogether. Like, every pivotal point of the movie becomes satirical because it's like the writers or the writer, the director, whoever, had such a hard on to hate Christianity that they threw away anything. Everything is sacrificed for it.
I ain't ever seen no demons.
It just feels like at a certain point the movie collapses in on itself. It makes fun of itself. It becomes satirical. And like, what makes it so bad, right? What makes this movie so bad, because it's preaching this thing about black people. There isn't a good black person in the movie. There literally isn't a good black person in the movie. Every black person in the movie that they show is bad. And the only person, hear my words, right? The only person, now the wind want to act up. The only person who's actually a good, half-decent person is Sammy's father. But Sammy's father is framed as a coon. And so I'm like, it feels like this movie is actually anti-blacks. It's such a dumb movie. It's such a bad movie. What makes the movie even worse is all the music produced for the movie, in the movie, right, was made by a white person. Ryan Coogler was too lazy that he couldn't even stick to the narrative of the movie, and at the very least be meta and have a black person produce the music.